Nicola Dixon was 17 years of age. She was studying for her A-levels and lived in Sutton Coldfield with her mother and father. It was just after Christmas in 1996, and for young people across the UK, they were excited to organise their New Year's Eve nights out, where they were going, which parties to attend and what outfits to wear. Nicola's family had gone away to visit parents after Christmas, but Nicola stayed at home. She had a pre-booked driving test for in the new year, and she'd arranged to meet friends, so her family waved her off but kept in constant contact with her, making sure she was okay while they were away. That New Year's Eve, the bars were starting to fill up and the house parties were getting going, with people from all over the country excited to celebrate the new year with friends and family. And in Sutton Coldfield it was no different. While her parents were away, Nicola had had a friend to stay over. So they got ready and started to venture out to meet other friends. That night she had planned to move between two parties that she'd been invited to. It was only a short distance from her family's home, and the first place Nicola went to was Good Hope Hospital Social Club. After arriving, Nicola called her mother, making sure to tell her that she'd arrived safely and all was good. She ended the call by telling her mother that she would call her again at midnight and speak to her to wish her a happy new year. It all seemed to be a good night. There were lots of people out that she knew. She was having a good time and she had a few drinks. Nicola was dancing with a friend from school, and it all seemed to be good fun and a lively atmosphere. At 9:45 p.m, Nicola told her friends that she was going on to the next place, so she left the social club and set off on foot to the station pub, which was less than a mile away, as another group of friends were there and she told them she'd pop in. But no one saw Nicola again that night. She did not call her family at midnight. She did not turn up to the station pub. Her parents were not overly concerned initially, as they just thought that maybe she was having a good time and they would speak to her in the morning. However, they would not speak to her in the morning, nor would they ever speak to their daughter again.
The clock was really loud, so you could always hear it on the hour. Kept awake, and at 4 it woke me up again, and I was becoming really concerned. Went upstairs to see if she was there, and she still wasn't back.
Early on New Year's Day, Sutton Coldfield had a fresh blanket of snow. Meanwhile, a reverend in the town, Reverend Daniel Connolly, and his wife Valerie were at home. They had just moved into a place called the Rectory that week and were settling into their new house next to the Holy Trinity Church. It was very cold outside. There was a fresh blanket of snow, but Valerie wanted to show her friends around the gardens where she'd just moved in and the empty lot next door, as their tenants had just moved out. So as Valerie and her guests walked through the gardens chatting and enjoying the beautiful snow, something unusual caught their eye. There was something lying face down in the snow. Oh my gosh, it's a woman, they thought. But as they got closer, the horror of what they saw became all too clear. It was the body of a young woman laid there, still wearing her party clothes, a leopard skin blouse, black trousers and a black jacket. Yes, it was Nicola, but at the time, nobody knew that. Her face had been beaten almost beyond recognition. Her hands and arms were covered in deep cuts and bruises from a desperate struggle. Nicola had fought fiercely, but the strong, overpowering violence that she had endured was too much for Nicola to withstand. She had put up a good fight, but as the horror gripped the town, Nicola's parents were then faced with a horrific call from police, as they told her father someone matching Nicola's description had been found viciously attacked and they needed to return home immediately. When the family arrived home from their trip, they were asked to identify their daughter's body. After confirming their worst fears, Nicola's parents left devastated. They were shocked at the injuries inflicted and could not understand why anyone would do such a thing. And why their daughter? She was well liked, she had no enemies, As news of Nicola's murder spread, West Midlands Police called investigators back from their festive breaks to assist with one of the biggest manhunts they had ever launched. The operation was codenamed Operation Imperial. The snow and ice had made preserving the crime scene a physical challenge, as much of the physical evidence had already been contaminated, but investigators had to continue on and find other leads. After speaking to Nicola's friend, the one that she'd been out with that night before the horrific attack, resulted in their theory that Nicola had taken a shortcut through an alley next to Holy Trinity Church. This was on her way to the station pub where she was supposed to meet friends, but that's where the attacker struck. Detectives also believed that her body may have been dumped over the 6-foot wall that bordered the property. Detectives interviewed Nicola's friends, her family, neighbours and the general public. They wanted to hear from everyone who had been on that night out, including a school friend who had been staying with Nicola at the time while her parents were away. Nicola had been carrying a black Calvino mock crocodile handbag and a matching purse, but neither of these were found at the scene or surrounding areas around the crime. So police questioned whether there was a possibility that the murder might have started out as a mugging, which may have gone horribly wrong when Nicola fought back. The detective on the case, Chief Inspector Kelvin Roberts of West Midlands Police, issued a public statement revealing the grim reality of the crime. He confirmed that Nicola had been beaten to death and sex assaulted. Police had not found a weapon, but they believed it could have been something resembling a brick or stone. DCI Roberts also made an appeal for anyone who had seen or heard anything suspicious that night to come forward. He warned local women not to walk alone until this killer was caught. This spread fear across the community. The response to the appeal was initially good, with the incident room receiving 150 calls, with some reported sightings of a stranger in the area.
I was keeping an eye out because New Year's Eve, if you're going to get your car stolen, that's the time you're going to get it stolen.
Just up the road, another resident heard footsteps in the snow.
I saw this man running down Coleshill Street towards the entrance of Derricott's premises. Nothing unusual.
He saw a white man, 5'10", with light brown hair and in his early 20s.
I thought, what an idiot making that row.
Because I'm a mechanic, I recall the car. It was a Mark II Fiesta, dark blue or royal blue. It had oversized wheels and it had a wide bore exhaust.
Detectives turned their attention to those who had attended the party at the Good Hope Hospital Social Club where Nicola had first been. They wondered if someone may have followed Nicola from that club and hoped that someone had seen something unusual. Another line of inquiry opened up when police learned of a similar incident just days before. A 16-year-old girl had been attacked and mugged near the same church on Christmas Day. The girl had been walking alone. It was around 5 p.m. when a man approached her, then dragged her into a secluded area and threatened her. He was apparently carrying a sharp weapon. The girl quickly handed over her bag, hoping that he would then leave. The purse contained £25 in cash, and although the young girl was badly shaken, she was okay. She was alive. The young girl described the man as a white man, clean-shaven, maybe in his late 20s, and he was apparently wearing a blue baseball cap, a dark bomber-style jacket and blue denim jeans. So police questioned if there was a connection between the two attacks and kept in mind as it continued. The only difference was that Nicola would clearly fought back against him and the young girl did not. Was that the reason for the murder? So police questioned whether or not that could have caused the escalation of the deadly violence. On the 6th of January 1997, Nicola's parents made an emotional appeal for the help in finding their daughter's killer. Her father, Andrew, urged the public to assist the police, saying nothing can bring our precious daughter back, but she does deserve justice. Please do all you can to help the police stop him from killing again. Following this plea, detectives revealed that a man was seen acting suspiciously near the murder scene on New Year's Eve. During the investigation, they uncovered a crucial piece of evidence. Forensic swabs had been taken from Nicola's body, and these had detected traces of semen. A single hair had also been found near her body. So although at the time the DNA testing was in its infancy, and it was not a standard procedure for police, officers knew that DNA samples could be the key in narrowing down their suspect list. Over 1,000 DNA samples had been collected from members of the public, but no match was detected. Detectives launched a poster campaign around Sutton Coldfield where they were appealing directly to the public. The posters were aimed at partygoers from New Year's Eve, who the police believe must know something. With no further leads, the case seemed to run cold despite the police telling everybody that it was remaining active. In April 1998, 16 months after Nicola's tragic murder, an inquest into her death was held in a Birmingham coroner's court. The coroner officially recorded a verdict of unlawful killing, and it was a formality due to the nature of her death. But the sadness of hearing all the evidence and the details of what Nicola had suffered was too much for them to bear. The family felt frustrated, but continued to hold on to hope that one day the killer would be brought to justice. DCI Roberts remained determined to crack this case, not only for them, but for the family and for justice for Nicola. By June 1998, 1,844 DNA samples had been taken from people, but still, no matches were found, and police seemed to be no closer to identifying their suspect. Despite the increase in the volume of DNA testing, with 2,800 samples now being collected, police still found themselves at a frustrating dead end. Nicola's parents continued with their heart-wrenching pleas to the public, asking anyone with doubts about someone they knew to come forward. By April 1999, more than 3,000 men had given samples, and the number of men tested would eventually rise to over 4,000. In total, the police had interviewed 11,000 people. They'd taken 6,000 statements, but still, no viable suspects had emerged. A couple of months later, West Midlands Police had to acknowledge the harsh reality. Despite their monumental efforts, they'd drawn a blank. Although nearly 6 years had passed without an arrest, Nicola's parents never once gave up hope. Their unwavering perseverance was finally rewarded on the 7th of December 2002, when the news had broke that they'd been long awaiting for. Police had made an arrest. The newspaper, known as the Birmingham Mail, splashed the story across the front page. West Midlands Police had taken a man into custody in connection with Nicola's murder. While the police remained tight-lipped about the specifics, they confirmed the arrest following an intelligence breakthrough. The newspaper sources believed that the breakthrough was linked to a match on the DNA database, where forensic evidence from the murder had been stored and periodically checked against new entries. It seemed likely that the suspect had recently been arrested for an unrelated offence, and it was during this arrest that his DNA was taken, leading to the match that they'd been waiting for. 2 days later, on the 9th of December, the public finally learned the identity of the man accused of killing Nicola. 41-year-old father of 3, Colin Waite. He appeared at Sutton Coldfield Magistrates Court. He was a native of Highgate. Colin Waite spoke only to confirm his name, age and address. Colin Waite, however, flatly denied any involvement in the crime. When formally charged, he pleaded not guilty. A date was set for November 2003 at Warwick Crown Court, where the full extent of the evidence against him would be laid out for all to see. At the trial, the jury heard chilling evidence that tied Colin Waite directly to Nicola's murder. That DNA sample Colin provided matched the semen and the single hair found at the crime scene with staggering certainty. The prosecution emphasised to the court that there was only 1 billion to 1 chance that the DNA could belong to anyone else. The one thing that was keeping him from being locked up for life was his DNA. Waite knew that if he was arrested and a DNA swab was taken, he could end up being linked to this or any other crimes he had committed. But he could not refrain from his criminal antics forever, and the match was discovered. He vehemently denied being involved, claiming that he was with his girlfriend on New Year's Eve and hadn't set foot in Sutton-on-Coldfield for 20 years. He also insisted he never met Nicola. But as the trial unfolded, it became clear that Colin Waite had spun a web of lies. His alibi was quickly dismantled. when Colin Waite's girlfriend Christine gave evidence at the trial, revealing that she had not spent New Year's Eve with him. In fact, although she had initially wanted to spend the night with him, Colin had refused to commit to any plans. This testimony contradicted his claim that he'd spent the night with her and her brother, leaving Colin Waite's supposed alibi in tatters. The jury also learned how Colin Waite had come to the attention of the police. In 2002, Colin Waite had been arrested in connection with a road rage attack, and it was during this arrest that his DNA had been taken. It matched the murder of Nicola. As the details of Nicola's ordeal were laid bare, the courtroom was gripped by the harrowing nature of this crime. Nicola's clothes had been torn from her body. Her underwear had been stuffed in her mouth to gag her while she was sex assaulted. Beyond the RAPE, Colin Waite had attempted another grotesque sex attack, leaving the jury horrified. Nicola had been savagely beaten. Her injuries were consistent with being rendered unconscious or left in a coma rather than just simply knocked out. The official cause of death was determined to be a severe head injury. It was absolutely freezing cold that night. Nicola had succumbed to hypothermia as she lay helpless in the freezing night air. In a dramatic and desperate move, Colin Waite accused the prosecution of fabricating evidence. At one point, overcome with emotion, he grabbed a copy of the New Testament and declared, "I swear on the Bible, I am telling the truth. May God strike me down if I'm not telling the truth." Colin Waite then laid out his version of events for the jury. He claimed that he had spent New Year's Eve with his then-girlfriend Christine. His brother and sister both corroborated his alibi, but the prosecution swiftly dismantled his testimony, labelled it as a case of family loyalty over truth. The jury clearly found the prosecution's case far more compelling, and in 25 minutes of deliberation, they returned a unanimous verdict. Colin Waite was found guilty. He was steadfast about his innocence and broke down in tears, bearing his head in his hands. Through sobs he muttered, "They set me up." And moments later he shouted, "They framed me on that." As the prosecution revealed his lengthy criminal history, 9 prior convictions, several of which were violent offences. And as Colin Waite stood to hear his sentence, the Honourable Justice Hughes made his position clear, describing the convicted murderer as a violent and dangerous man. The judge said, "You attacked a 17-year-old girl. She was a complete stranger to you. You were nearly 20 years older than she was. You RAPED'd her and killed her, using considerable violence to achieve your sex ends, or possibly to prevent her from reporting what you'd done." Colin Waite was sentenced to life in prison. Whether you will ever be safe to be released is a matter of others, not me. If attention is paid to what I say, you can expect to be in prison for a good number of years before your release is even considered. After the conviction, Nicola's parents spoke with quiet strength. They had never given up hope that their daughter's killer would be found. Justice has finally been done, and now they can try and move forward, knowing that the killer is finally behind bars.